All right, everybody. Welcome back to another daily drop. And for those who know, we're in a bit of a transition period from Tar Heel Illustrated over to something else that is in the works right now that we will hopefully be able to announce in the near future. So as always, make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones and AJ. We're here to talk a little UNC and the athletic department transition, shakeup, whatever you want to call it. I've seen a ton of these keywords being floated all over the internet. And we're going to dive into the news that came out on Tuesday morning regarding Bubba Cunningham and a new hire as well in the athletic department, and Steve Newmark. So we're going to dive into what went down, a little bit of background on Steve Newmark as well, and kind of what it means for Carolina as a whole. So let me just go through the news that happened for those who don't know, because there is a lot of moving parts to it, AJ. Even I had to read it a few times to fully kind of understand what was actually happening here. But let's start with Bubba Cunningham.
A big step into the future of college athletics. You can start out with that, and then you could sort of fill in some of the blanks about Steve Newmark and what's going on here. But 100%. It is a massive step into the future of college athletics, and it shows us that North Carolina is thinking ahead. And I can add a lot more to that here in a minute.
Yeah, well, we're definitely going to dive into that because I agree. I think that's the main gist of why this move is going down. It definitely signals a major shift in the college sports landscape, and credit to Carolina for maybe hopping on it, relatively early with this. So first and foremost, Bubba Cunningham signed a 2-year contract extension through July 2029. But in the summer of 2026, he will transition into a new role of senior advisor to the chancellor and AD. Now, on top of that, Steve Newmark, who's a longtime president of RFK Racing, been there for about 15 years now, which is works in NASCAR, will join UNC as executive associate AD starting on August 15th of this year. He will report to Bubba Cunningham during the 2025-26 season before fully taking over as the athletic director in the summer of 2026, when Bubba obviously transitioned to his new senior advisor role. And again, like we've kind of alluded to a little bit, his initial focus is really going to be revenue driving initiatives, especially for the football and men's basketball programs. But I think the news comes out like this, and first thing your mind goes to, as you've mentioned, is, okay, this again just shows and marks the ever-changing and quick-changing landscape that we're now in college sports, where it is a lot, especially with revenue sharing coming in, the business that it is. So when you heard this news, AJ, not only because it's been framed a few different ways, like I've seen people say Bubba's being, forced out, which I don't believe in, and there's a lot of, I think, misinformation kind of out there, maybe people blowing it out of proportion a little bit more than it is, because I think on the surface, when you look at the moves here, bringing in someone like Steve Newmark, we'll talk about his background a little bit, that has the background he does in professional sports and business, I think it's a move that makes a ton of sense, in allowing someone like Bubba, who's been in the business for so long as well, to kind of serve as a senior advisor to not only the AD, but the chancellor as well. I think it's a move that in a lot of different ways is a good one for North Carolina, and on the surface just makes a ton of sense with the direction in which college sports is moving.
Yeah, let me address Bubba first. There was a lot of speculation. Bubba's going to get out of Dodge. Bubba's the leading candidate for Michigan State AD job and all that kind of junk, because he felt slighted about Belichick, all the different narratives that were being tossed out there. This will kind of brush all that stuff aside, push it aside, because he felt so slighted. Why would he stay?
Yeah,
he made enough money. He didn't have to work anymore. But he wants to be a part of this, and he knows that the next wave, North Carolina has a chance to be very successful. He wants to be a part of that. And what this does is it bolsters the foundation. You see it it's almost like, for lack of a better term, a GM for the athletic department in a way. But a GM in a literal sense, like a guy that understands. He gives it gravitas. He gives it experience. He's someone that Steve Newmark can go to and say, okay, how do I navigate this, that kind of thing. And what Steve Newmark brings is a guy who's coming from an industry in which 80% of the revenue comes through marketing. That's an area North Carolina was always so far behind, because let's face it, man, the Dean Smith way ran this place forever. And Dean didn't want advertising in the Dean Dome or Carmichael. He didn't like it, and the school was just kind of slow to adapt. They've been very slow to adapt to a lot of things. But I believe in the last 12 months, really the last 8 months, and I base this on conversations I've had with extremely noteworthy people multiple times, and conversations I've been a part of, not just one-on-one, but been a part of with a few others as well, that North Carolina has completely changed its approach and has fully embraced the new world of college athletics. And it's easy for a lot of naysayers that are fans to say, they ain't never going to pay anything. This is just North Carolina being Carolina, business as usual. This is an example that this is not business as usual. When I think having money people take over is an important thing, especially when they do have a connection. There is a bit of a working relationship with Bubba. In fact, Steve Newmark was part of their advisory committee in getting Bill Belichick and finding a head coach in football. Mm-hmm. You know that he's from Chapel Hill. It's not like he's going to walk in and someone's going to have to tell him where the gas station is. They're not going to have to tell him where the South building is. He knows where that stuff is. And he knows North Carolina. He also is on a first-name basis with MJ. And I know that there is an effort, a broad effort, that they want to try to bring Michael Jordan into things because Michael does not believe in NIL. But maybe eventually they can persuade Michael that, hey, this is the way it is now. It's not really NIL. It's just business as usual. Rookies make a minimum in the NBA without having proven anything yet.
I chuckle every time I hear that, by the way.
This is business as usual. I know the poster boy of literal NIL is against NIL, right?
Yeah, it's interesting.
So I think this is a very, very good step forward. Mm-hmm. I don't know Steve Newmark. I only know what he looks like because of the photos that came out this week. So I wouldn't know him if he stood next to me in line at the grocery store. I hope to have a chance to meet with him and stuff eventually, some of us in the media. But I do know that this is a significant step forward for the university and its athletic department. North Carolina is doing everything in its power through the gambling revenue that UNC and NC State are going to get. There are a lot of things moving forward that I think is positioning the school for one of two things: either life in the ACC forever, which it will be very lucrative because of the ways it's learning how to raise funds and increase revenue in other areas. And hey, if it's the ACC, you might have a chance to actually be more successful. And if you're getting enough revenue, that's a pretty good that's a win-win situation. Or to be ready if you end up in the Big Ten or the SEC, that financially you are at that level from day one. Mm-hmm. So Carolina's taking care of itself now. It's taking care of itself, positioning itself for down the road. And by the way, all this was announced on the day that revenue sharing became a thing. And a lot of athletes at North Carolina got checks on Tuesday. This is a money move, and it's all about money because cash drives everything right now. And I think it's a very good move for Carolina.
Yeah, proactive with it too. Like you said, it happened on the same day with revenue sharing. It's obviously not something they just got on a phone call on Monday morning, like, hey, should we do this? Yeah, let's do it. No, it's obviously been something that's been in the works for a little bit of time because anything in business, it takes time to kind of tie these things together. So let me provide a little bit more background information on Steve Newmark. I know you've mentioned a little bit, but let me just provide a little bit more for those who don't know. Chapel Hill native, deep ties to Carolina, like AJ's already mentioned. He was a part of the advisory committee for hiring Bill Belichick and also for the Rams Club executive director search. In terms of education, went to William & Mary and UVA law, so has that law background. And before joining RFK, which I believe was back in 2010, Newmark was a partner for a Charlotte-based law firm that specialized in sports and entertainment and worked with organizations like the NCAA, the SEC, and Conference USA, just to name a few. So again, just shows some of those college connections and background that he has working in that field as well. And AJ, we're going to continue to see this in college sports. College sports is not what it used to be. It is moving into a pro sports model where revenue is just incredibly important. So to me, I don't think anyone's surprised. And I think we continue to see with this trend is guys like Steve Newmark, who are essentially running businesses in professional sports, with this so being related to NASCAR, transitioning into these college roles because of how college sports has become a business now. It is a pro-like lifestyle and a pro-like approach to things. So I think you're going to continue to see this trend across the country with college athletics. And I think Carolina jumping on it when they did, making it a priority. And like you said, not being late to the party. not being like, you know what, the revenue sharing's coming, but we don't want to change that model. We'll deal with that down the road. We don't want to change how we do things now. It's like, no, we're pushing into a new direction that's going to set us up better for the future. And I think that's exactly what Carolina's doing here. So I think Newmark's background makes a lot of sense. There was no doubt in my mind, AJ, no doubt in my mind that whoever they hired would have to have some kind of Carolina connection. And I'm glad that it didn't take long to figure out there was a connection there.
But he's a UVA guy, and we graduated from UVA.
Yeah, it was funny because when you look at his stuff on the surface, you just like go to his LinkedIn page. You're like, where's the Carolina connections here? And then you kind of dive into it and realize he's been on some of those executive committees. He's from Chapel Hill. You're like, okay, yeah, there we go. There's the box check that I was looking for.
Yeah, and I think I do like the William and Mary UVA angle here from his academics, because some people go to a place like Carolina, and I think some of the concern at Carolina is, well, we're just different. So we got to have somebody that, is kind of hoity-toity and highfalutin like we are. And I think with a guy like him, he understands the high academic cultures. But let's be real, man. Look, the athletic side of things, yeah, maybe there aren't as many exceptions, although I think that there are more. Yeah, the academics are there, but the reality is this is a straight financial move, but it's a guy who at least understands what the tea parties are like. If he goes to the cocktail party on a Friday night somewhere in Chapel Hill, he's not going to feel really uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And that's an important thing to some of the movers and shakers in Chapel Hill. But I also think more than anything else, this is a significant move forward. And I believe, and I told you, we talked about it on podcast back in December, before Belichick was hired, that they were going to make this push in basketball like they did in football. They were all in. This wasn't just because of Belichick. If they would have hired anybody else, they would have had a significant financial push in football. And we also knew at the time that the revenue share was going to get passed, and Carolina was already prepared. They were figuring out how it was going to work, but they were prepared to do the full $20.5 million. We talked about that last December, and that's now a reality. That cash is going out. So Carolina is clearly jumping into the modern era of college athletics. There's no doubt about it. The funny thing is they went back and got a 70-plus-year-old and never coached in college to do it in football. But again, the tools he has were going to be there. It just made it a lot easier sell to go ahead and funnel a lot of those tools to him. And he's been frugal with it, which is great, because that was his operating world in the NFL. You got to be frugal with some things. So I think that will help Carolina moving forward as well. UNC is in good shape moving forward, athletically, financially. It can be better. It'll be very interesting to see how much better it gets under Steve Newmark. What does North Carolina look like in 3 or 4 years after he's had a chance to roll his sleeves up and apply his successful tactics to UNC? How many of them can he apply? Are there going to be ads all over the place? You're going to see like 5 of them. Are you going to turn on a football game at UNC, and is it going to look like a CFL game? Mm-hmm. With ads all over the place. Are the Tar Heels going to have an ad here on the basketball jersey and something on the shorts? Will they all start wearing the same brand shoes again like they used to a long time ago when coaches had shoe contracts? Who knows? I don't think they'll ever do that because players individually have things now. So it'll be very interesting to see what it looks like in a few years. It's going to look different. You're going to be able to tell eras because you'll be able to tell, it's the pre-Newmark era, and this is the Newmark era. It'll look different, but look, you either hop on board or you sink. And Carolina's hopped on board.
Yeah, you either get right or you get left. And I agree. I think Carolina's definitely getting right. Real quickly, we've talked a little bit about Bubba, but with him signing the extension, going to remain his AD up until the summer of 26 and then transition into that senior advisor role. I know we're still kind of in those stages of maybe understanding exactly what that's going to look like because it is a year or so down the road now. But what do you think it means for someone like Bubba? And do you think that's a position that kind of makes sense for someone with his experience? Because he's been an athletic director. I mean, that's what he's been doing. He's at Notre Dame previously. Like, that's what his background is in. He's kind of moving out of that role. But it does feel like someone with his experience, especially as long as he's been at Carolina now, being able to kind of sit back a little bit and advise the chancellor, advise the athletic director in Newmark. It seems like a position for him that he can have and bring a lot of value to the athletic department still. So are you at all surprised that he's sticking around, or you think it's one that kind of makes sense for all parties?
Well, I think it makes sense. What you're doing is you're just bolstering who you are. It's almost like if you have, God, I mean, use one of your old terms. You used to say, for lack of a better term, a lot. You don't say it that much anymore. Again, the growth of Jacob Turner. But I'm going back in time. I'm going to use it again. For lack of a better term, it's like there's a board of trustees for athletics, and it's a man of one. And his name is Bubba Cunningham. Carolina's so smart in keeping him around. He's so good at what he does. And he's a great AD for non-revenue sports. So you have a guy that's going to be bringing in cash in men's basketball and football. But you also have a dude there who takes tremendous pride in overseeing highly successful non-revenue sports. He's there all the time. I mean, he really is very good at that. I've had people that were on the board of trustees tell me last year during the Belichick or during the football coaching search when the Belichick talk started ramping up, and there were some disagreements about this and that during that process, as there often is, no matter who is going to get hired or who a leading candidate is. But I had one person tell me, he said, Bubba Cunningham is the best AD on the planet for non-revenue sports. I'm not so sure about the revenue sports. And that's just what that person said. I agree about non-revenue. I disagree with that statement about revenue because Carolina's done very well. Look, he got UNC to a position where it has the GM in basketball. If people need to understand the tidal wave that Bubba has had to fight at times when it comes to funding for football and especially basketball and getting things to change at a place that has been very hesitant to change. So Bubba deserves a lot of credit. He gets to go out and I think sort of get a position like an emeritus status where he's being thanked. Mm-hmm. He probably won't have to work a whole lot, get paid a nice chunk of change, and having that ear and that voice right around the corner is huge.
Oh my God, it's so valuable.
Very few schools in the country can have someone like Bubba Cunningham in a position like that after next year. North Carolina will have that. And again, that positions UNC athletics very, very well moving forward.
Yeah, especially a guy like him. You mentioned how how widely respected he is when it comes to non-revenue sports. It's such a big thing at Carolina. I mean, Carolina's one of the few schools that has as many athletic programs as it has. So having someone that is kind of an expert in that field and having him stick around and not just say, hey, man, we'll see you later. We're just moving into this thing kind of blind. We'll see what happens.
I think a key here, too, is, and this is my hunch. Mm-hmm. This isn't inside information of conversation. This is just my hunch. You're also looking at a scenario where, yes, they're going to really try to maximize on football and men's basketball. That's obvious. But there are opportunities to generate additional revenue through some of the non-revenue sports to help cover those expenses. You could tell me that in the world of field hockey, they can't further monetize the field hockey program?
Of course.
Are you going to tell me they got to get on ball with men's lacrosse, by the way? Mm-hmm. They got to get that. I mean, back in the day, Carolina, Towson, Syracuse were the dominant programs, Maryland, they got to get that back to where it was. Lacrosse is a massive sport. You can tell me you can't monetize a UNC men's lacrosse team that is a consistent contender for a national championship?
100%.
The women's basketball program, with what's going on with the attention to the WNBA and new eyeballs on women's basketball, you could further monetize that. Mm-hmm. I think the attention that softball's getting now with Texas Tech with the $1 million pitcher and the number of people that watch the Softball World Series, you could find ways to monetize that. And look at baseball. They average 2.4 million viewers for the College World Series. Mm-hmm. Those are damn good numbers. You're going to tell me you can't find ways to further monetize Carolina baseball, and all that will help those sports so the athletic department can maybe get a little bit more to track and field, a little bit more to women's tennis, which you should be able to monetize because they're fantastic too. I think they're in position now where they could focus on some of those other things as well, but obviously reap every dime you can out of men's basketball and football, which makes everything else better. But I don't think it ends with those two. It'll be interesting to see what the other sports look like in 4 or 5 years, how much they're able to generate. I saw where Virginia just announced that they're not going to charge admission to a lot of that stuff anymore, which I find is interesting. But that might be a ploy where you get a lot more people that go in, and they're there with sponsors that are there. I'll never forget 1981. I'm dating myself, but I've been following baseball.
You do that every podcast, so it's fine.
I know. I've been following baseball avidly since I came out of the crib. But 1981, there was a 50-day strike The first day back from the strike, the San Diego Padres they played a home game back at old Jack Murphy Stadium. They shared that place with the Chargers, and they charged no admission. Free. Free as general admission, free as you come. First come, first serve. They filled the place with 70,000 people, and they made more money than they would have if they would have gotten 22,000 paid subscribers, or people with tickets, which would have been like a normal game. Mm-hmm. So there are ways to do this moving forward, and I think Carolina has leapfrogged into the space where they will find ways to make this work financially, not just for men's basketball, football. I think it's deeper than that. But obviously the focus is on football and men's basketball. Those are the front door sports, and those are the sports that are going to be at play most wherever they end up, whether it's in the ACC or if they end up in the Big Ten or SEC in 10 years, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, they've got the brand. They've always had the brand. Pretty much everybody. It's a UNC is kind of a worldwide thing. I've told the story before. Went to Paris for France for a month with a buddy of mine, and I saw multiple people walking around. French people walking around with Carolina basketball jerseys on. It is a international brand. So setting
the Wharf in San Francisco, 2005. I was out there to visit one of my best friends. This was a couple days after the national championship, and this was 2.5 weeks before I got married. And we're at the Fisherman's Wharf area, whatever it is, down in San Francisco, where all the seals and stuff are. And there's a sporting goods store that kind of jets out in a corner. Right there in the window was a mannequin with a North Carolina basketball uniform on. Mm-hmm. San Francisco.
It tells you all you need to know, man. It really does. And again, Carolina's setting up the foundation here to be able to build on that success and continue to grow this thing, and not just kind of resting on the laurels of, we got the brand, like we'll make money somehow. It's like, no, get your house in order first. Make sure you're set up for success, and that brand is only going to boost it because of what it is. So yeah, I think Carolina's really smart move from North Carolina. I think one that makes a ton of sense, and one I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how it continues to develop and seeing what comes out of it. So I think that's a good place to wrap this up. Get involved in the comments. Let us know what you think about the move. Are you excited about Steve Newmark coming in? What do you think about Bubba kind of stepping back into that senior advisor role next summer? And yeah, we want to hear from you guys on what you think it might mean for Carolina athletics as a whole moving forward. So I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. As I alluded to, some things in the works. Stay tuned. Continue to follow us on socials. The links are below, and make sure you keep it locked to the YouTube channel as well, because if and when those things come to fruition, we'll obviously announce it on all those platforms. So yeah, we appreciate everybody continuing to rock with us. We're not going anywhere on the YouTube side, especially. Make sure you like, make sure you share, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell too, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.